Hello and welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. And we are here with our episode number 7 of voicED, where we are bringing four pillars of education together: learners, parents, educators, and education leaders, policymakers, employers, to recreate, redesign, rethink, and reimagine the education system. So, welcome all. And before I go ahead and introduce our amazing panel here, we are going to have a minute of silence so we can gather ourselves and we can be in the present moment. Thank you. Welcome back. And we are your host. I'm Archana here. I'm mother of two self-learners living a minimalist life, trying to working on a path to go on zero outsourcing for education, food, and wellness. With my amazing host, Mick. Mick is from Thailand, but he is an amazing educator, disruptive, doing a lot of disruption in education. And he is teaching kids from almost more than 20 countries, and he is their favorite teacher. So it's amazing to have Mick in every episode with me, co-hosting and bringing out some gems from our panelists. So welcome, Mick.
Thank you so much.
Also, yeah. Also, we have we okay. So so we are honored today to have our learner as Jay. I'll just go ahead and introduce Sandeep, Toral, and Viren. Uh, and our first panelist, which is we want to create a learner-centric education. So it's like they are on the driving wheel always. And Jay is here. And his favorite quote, if Jay, you want to say yourself, because I think I can't read that.
Yes, it's Latin for I will either find my way or make one. It's kind of like one of the basic thought processes which I kind of approach life with, in the sense that my approach is that if the system isn't giving you everything you need, you do it yourself, right? So
Wonderful.
essentially, it confuses a lot of people, but it's Latin for I'll either find my way or make one.
Wonderful. Jay is a very cool teenager and the young entrepreneur. Uh, he started his first startup at the age of 30. He is also a TEDx speaker. And I'm like, it's amazed to know that he is a strategic advisor at this young age to multiple startups. And he ran his own startup for a year and a half, and working helping developing countries with last mile grocery management via pre-existing traditional infrastructure. He now works as an advisor. Also, the question currently he is holding is, how do you get more teenagers to work on startups? And that is pretty relevant question and need of the hour. We need more young entrepreneurs. So welcome, Jay. I hope we get to listen so many cool things from you today. uh, our
Thank you.
next our next panelist is Viren, and Viren is coming and joining us as a parent. He is subsurface analytics advisor at Shell. He did his PhD from UT Austin. And the most important thing is he's father of self-learner, and I know Viren for like a couple of years now. He has been doing some cool stuff with his self-learner son on Legos. So he and his son just share with other homeschoolers on what different things they are building with the Lego, and doing a lot of automation and doing a lot of things with the Lego blocks. And he also started, like, he also was running some programs, learning modules for teens for the Lego as well. So their family embarked on homeschooling journey in 2020, and since past 1 year they have shifted to unstructured learning, which is more like kind of unschooling, and they are pretty active in the self-learning families group, unschooling families group. And the question he is currently holding is, and very apt, is a lot of information is out there, how to distill info to your own DNA. And I think we are actually working on self-learning cafes platform where we are trying to get all the resources which can be useful for everyone, and kind of curated resources. So I think you might find some questions, some answers there as well. Our third pillar here is educator. And Toral is founder at Brisha. She is also academic head at Dominic's Group of Educational Institutes. And the favorite quote is, education is discovery of oneself through one's work or deed or creation. Beautiful. Learning is an endless journey in pursuit of self exploration, finding your purpose, and transforming yourself. Like, very well said. I think very up. As an educator, she wants to provide more opportunities to young minds to explore themselves by being mindful, getting them more curious, and also what they love. And the questions she is currently holding is, can we change the way we assess our students? Yes, we have been discussing that a lot. Can we get rid of the standardized test and look at each students individually? I think this is one thing which is coming out, like, from every episode and from every person or every pillar on this podcast, is that how do we get rid of assessments and grades and everything. So welcome, Toral. And our fourth very important pillar here is the education leader, Sandeep Rai. And I'm really honored, we are all really honored to have you, Sandeep, today. He has been Chief of City Operations at Teach for India for many years now, from since 2008. He also did his MS from Columbia University in international relations and affairs. And he actually moved back to roots, to Bharat. He, I think, born and brought up in US, but Bharat brought him back to work in our country. So I'm really proud of that, Sandeep. The favorite quote he has is, the true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned, by Brian Stevenson. And Sandeep helped start Teach for India after teaching secondary science in Washington, D.C. For Teach for America, COPS, and subsequently working as a fundraising consultant with Ashoka. Over the past 12 years, he has been playing a key architect for Teach for India's organizational strategy and flagship fellowship programs. Sandeep also has compiled his experiences in the book Grace and Shine, Stories from Teach for India. He is soon moving to the circle. Again, I think Jay and all, like, we have been talking about young entrepreneurship. So it's been a great advantage here to have Sandeep as well. So he is moving to the circle in entrepreneurship incubation and support program that leads to a network of schools and after school programs. And I couldn't get the question he has been holding, but I captured from one of his LinkedIn posts that the thoughts he has been currently holding is that, and it's great for us to discuss here, is that our resistance to change, in fact, is likely the single biggest reason why our schools and institutions are grappling with the possibility of becoming utterly obsolete. Anyone who has done even a layman comparison of workforce needs to what our schools are delivering knows this, that our schools are preparing kids for the past. So much thankful, Sandeep, to put this exact words out there, that we really need to, this is the effort we have been putting to bring all the four pillars together. So, with that, welcome everyone, and I would now invite Mick to start our podcast. Round of questions to the panelists.
All right, great. Thank you, Archana, and thank you to everyone for being here today. As always, we look forward to the intriguing and insightful answers that we get from our panelists each week on these all important questions. And as always, we start with our learner because we're all here to try to help learners, and their voices are often not heard. And not only should they have a seat at the table, it should be the head of the table, because at the end of the day, the learners are the most important part of this equation. So, um, Jay, welcome. It's awesome that you are a young teen entrepreneur. Archana said, I live in Thailand. I'm actually from the US. But what I've noticed is our greatest entrepreneurs are not products of the school system. They've succeeded despite the school system. And so, our first question for you runs along those lines. What do you think about the structure of education, and how do you think it benefits and or harms learners?
This is a great question. I've thought a lot about this. Honestly, what, in my opinion, the education system is doing is that it has this one size fits all sort of mentality, and it's kind of just it's kind of like that structure you have. It's like one of those molding tools you have for Play-Doh, and each person is kind of like the Play-Doh which comes in, and you're just brute forcing and pushing everyone through that through that one through that one smiley or a star shape to kind of get them to fit in out there. Now, I'm not a hardcore rebellious guy. I know a lot of other founders or close friends of mine who are 15, 16, dropped out to work on startups full time. I haven't gone through that journey, like the whole dropping out sort of thing. But at the same time, I think that the conventional education system is not the most appropriate places. There's also, you have to kind of tread with caution, especially when you're working on a startup on the side, because if you aren't playing your cards right, there's a very decent chance you won't be able to pursue your passion. You're going to get caught up in other things, and chances are that like the environment is the most important thing, right? Whether you're working on a startup, you're exploring any passion, you just need the right people around you. And I think the education system is you have to play your cards right. In that sense, the education system is a tricky place where you have to navigate that. I think that's a slightly tangential answer, but hopefully I think I nailed it.
No, you did. I like your analogy of like the Play-Doh, like cookie cutter, because the
Yeah.
education system breeds conformity. That's what's valued, not individualism, but each person reaching the same goal in the same way with the same end product. And that's not
Yeah.
what creates entrepreneurs like yourself. And so I think you hit it right on the nose, but you do have to tread lightly, because there are people out there who still value the traditional education system. So I think your answer was a great way to get us started. Thank you for your thoughtful answer, Jay. Our parent for today is our second question. Viren, welcome. Um, I definitely love that you guys do Legos. I'm wondering, do you guys, this isn't your question, but do you guys do Mindstorms at all? Robots? You program
Yes,
Mindstorms?
yes,
What's your
Mindstorm, NXT, Spike, all those awesome
That's
stuff.
awesome. Yeah, I teach Scratch to my kids, and a lot of Mindstorm visual scripting uses Scratch blocks for the most part. So it's one of the few coding things that I understand, because I just basically learn stuff to teach elementary school kids. As a parent, though, what we'd like to know, Viren, is why do you think parents have become more obsessive and protecting about parenting, especially in this generation currently?
So first of all, thanks for having me. It's a great thing, and to share the thoughts and to learn from others. Coming to your question, uh, the parents at a current stage, they have become more of overprotective, or maybe do things in a certain manner. First of all, there is a lot of information out there. So parents are very much, they want to keep up to date with all these information. Part of that information leads to confusion, and part of that information leads to comparisons, and comparisons comes for various reasons, societal pressures, what parents couldn't do it, those sort of desires, and that has grown with time. So previous generation parents, they probably had less time, less information. Parents today have access to all these tech things, which brings in a lot of information from various sources very quickly, and then they just want to apply it, and thinking that whether this is good to do or not to do. That sort of decision making is in a very gray area. So if they can do it, probably they tend to do it, and I think it's a bit of confusion, information, and this decision making, which leads parents to be very overprotective about their kids.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with that. It's not just kids who are being bombarded with information; parents are as well, and it doesn't just lead to confusion. There's misinformation out there. How do you know what's a relevant source and not? And so that does lead to a path of overprotection, and sometimes parenting out of fear is something that we notice a lot. Is just you know that trying to keep your kid, the fear of your kids failing at something is not the way you want to drive as a parent. So I'm sure as a parent of a self-learner like you and Archana, no, that's not what's best for your kids. And you guys are really trying to do what's best for your kids, despite all of that large swaths of information out there that can get confusing. Thank you for that, Viren.
Yeah. So
Welcome, Toral, our educator for today. So these are the questions I got in the first episode. I was the educator. I got to be on the panel and be grilled by Miss Archana. And I love these questions, so I hope you do as well. The first one is, what are the things that you love about education in its current forms? And what are the things that you hate or at least strongly dislike about education in its current form?
Yeah, thank you, Archana, and thank you, Mick, for having me here. It's a great panel discussion here. So it's been 2 years since the pandemic has hit us, leaving these years marked with perhaps the most grueling yet challenging times for educators and learners. So it is a world of constant change and uncertainty, which is pushing education to break from the shackles of old pedagogies, which were being followed for the longest of time across the world, right? To gain traction and revisiting education from a new lens. So, what currently, it's not that something currently that I like or love about education, but there's something definitely evolving and emerging. So, it is this fast paced and dynamic world that is calling all of us to reimagine, rethink, and redesign the system to point out that the learners of today need to be educated in other crucial spheres of life, which will make life relevant, enjoyable, and even sustainable for themselves. So, with that said, living in an information age where content is available at fingertips has made our teaching methodologies and syllabus irrelevant. But with the advent of edtech and the new methods of learning and teaching, has resulted in autonomy, independent research, affordability, accessibility, convenience for both the teacher and the learner. So, a world which is information rich and turning virtual in every way is perhaps alerting the humans to look more within. And this is perhaps which I am preempting, or I feel that is something really something to love about. And basically to look more within to discover who we are as a person, where we belong, how do we coexist in the environment, and how are we contributing to the environment, and what purpose do we serve, is something that I feel that education can bring about, going talking about a huge paradigm shift that we are all in. So
Yeah,
that is
excellent.
something.
As teachers, as educators, we have to rethink what our role is in this equation, right? You nailed it. It's that we're in an information age, so no longer are we the dispensers of knowledge, the vessels of knowledge for kids. We have to shift to being facilitators, mentors, guides, support systems, and allowing more independence from the kids to pursue their own interests and their own learning paths, while we support that or give them, chances to reflect and give them a chance to teach us new things, especially if it's tech-based. So I really love the way you break that down. As an educator, that really warms my heart, and I couldn't agree with you more on all of those points. Thank you so much for your first answer, Toral. Sandeep, welcome. Your first question as an education leader, after so many years of your work in enabling access to education and empowering youth to work in the communities, what are some key learnings do you think that would help redesign and recreate a new education path, kind of what we're talking about here today?
Yeah. It's good to be here. And thank you for that. I mean, a couple of thoughts. So one is, I guess the question is what actually drives efficiency and what incentivizes efficiency and what incentivizes the current education model. And when we basically rethink that, we start to inevitably take the path to what's the role that assessments play, right? And when we start to think about assessments, well, the question is, well, basically, why do high stakes assessments exist, right? And that takes us to basically the question of what's the role that degrees play? And we start to think about, well, why do degrees exist? Well, then what's the role that, employers play, and how does all of that scaffold upon one another? And when I start to unpack all of that, I think employers use degrees because they're an effective market signal. They're an efficient market signal, right? They tell employers, hey, this student, this learner has made it through a rigorous program, has mastered X number of skills. And those degrees are based off of assessments, which tell degrees and then tell employers that, hey, this learner knows X, Y, and Z and would be a great fit for your company. The problem with that whole paradigm is that while employers are actually looking at those degrees and they're looking at those assessments, they're simultaneously telling us that actually overwhelmingly graduates are coming into the workforce unprepared, right? They're overwhelmingly coming, not mastering some of the same skills. And so I guess the question that I'm holding right now is what would it take to rethink that entire market signal? And what would more efficient market signals for employers look like so that it incentivizes a more relevant, a more creative, and a more 21st century path? And I think at the heart of being able to basically reshape education is going to have to be an effort just to reshape that market signal. And there have been lots of those cropping up across the world, right? And there's lots of these micro badges, right? So now you can go online, you can basically take courses. You take courses, you get a badge. This is actually, I've gained this skill. And that's cropping up more and more. And it's actually competing with how we think about degrees and assessments. But I think it's going to take innovations and disruptions like that to be able to reshape how we think about what we call this traditional educational path.
Brilliant, Sandeep. Yeah, I often say we have to reverse engineer this now. What are employers looking for? Clearly, they're not getting the skills that they desire in new graduates. So let's go back. I hear so much about reskilling. And what I talk about a lot is let's start pre-skilling. Let's start teaching kids from a very young age. If they're missing soft skills, let's focus on social emotional learning and help them to develop life skills and use their interests to develop as proxies for the skill sets that we think are important just to be a good human being, let alone to qualify for specific jobs. So I like the way you picked apart, each level of it is why. And I have those same questions all the time. Like, well, why when people give me standards, I'm like, well, why is that important for a third grader? Well, why is that important for a first grader? Why is that important for a fifth grader? I never get answers. It's just, well, that's what the standards are. And I couldn't agree more with your assessment of the whole, situation that we find ourselves in. It's something has to be done, and how do we go about that is why we're here. So great first round from all of our panelists. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add something. There is that livelihood is the biggest fear for parents as well, that doesn't allow them to experiment with the self-learning part, because that's why we have been working for last many years in the self-learning zone, and we thought it's very important to make it a top-down approach where we work with the employers, and if they are open to skills-based candidature and not degree-based, probably if the change starts from there, it will ease learners' life. It will remove the fears from parents' mind. And I think that can set the tone there. So instead of bottom up, I think the top down is something which we should start looking at. So
yeah, parents' end goal is for their kids to qualify for great jobs at the end of the day. So if employers are giving them those market signals, as Sandeep said, that this is what we're looking for, maybe they'll be more open to embracing different pathways to get to that end goal. Great first round, everybody. We are back to Jay, our young entrepreneur. So Jay, I'm sure a lot of your learning is self-learning, and people think by nature that self-learning is non-competitive because you're not comparing yourself to other kids in grades. So are discipline and motivation needed, and how do you keep yourself growing when you're the person that has to push all this yourself?
The way I look at it is that I think when you're learning on your own, it's important that you set up just kind of like a roadmap on where you want to see yourself, let's say in 2 months or in 3 months. And with with these kind of hurdles or these checkpoints that you kind of create for yourself, you have something to always strive towards. Because what I've kind of noticed with a lot of people, that once they're left alone with, let's say, a textbook, or trying to achieve, let's say, proficiency in coding or some other skill, they often get complacent after reaching the first checkpoint. The way I kind of go about this is, I think number one, you kind of build yourself a really, really strong community of people who value the same things as you do. For example, I'm in close touch with a lot of other founders who are my age, who are going through the same things as I am. And we're always on call discussing what exactly is going wrong. We're debugging each other's issues. And honestly, I think that's something which you have to do on your own, right? I can't pack a community together and just give it to you. I can't give it to you with a bow on the top, right? You have to build these communities up yourself. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's really important to set your own goals, your own checkpoints before you start. So let's say I'm going to say that by the end of today I want to accomplish this. By the end of the week I want to accomplish this. By the end of the month. So you kind of start out with a very, very short term goal, which is probably by the end of the day, and keep building on goals till a very, very long term. So for example, I would say something like, listen, I want to have a major exit by the time I'm 25, right? That's one of my long term goals. So just keeping goals and breaking these larger goals into smaller subsections is, in my opinion, what keeps you at it. Regarding motivation, I think the most important thing is having a community to fall back on, because everyone has bad days, right? If I tell you that I haven't had a bad day ever since, that's probably a lie, right? Everyone does. So having a community which is always there for you, which you can always fall back on, is probably the most crucial thing. It's also, you kind of just have to keep faith in yourself. You have to keep faith in what you're doing, because until you are doing what you're doing with uttermost sense of passion and uttermost sense of just wanting to do that, there is absolutely no reason you're going to keep at it, because staying motivated is a function of how badly you want it. And if you're passionate, you're going to do everything in your power to get there, right?
Yeah, that's great, Jay. That's something that we love asking our self-learners each week is motivation is not a big factor when you're doing something you love and are interested in and have passion for. Motivation is not, it's tough to motivate yourself to do things that are uninteresting to you, but not to do the things that you love. And I really love too adding goals in community, not something we always hear, like really creating that support system for yourself of people going through the same thing so that you can all lift each other up. That's brilliant. And you're right. It's something you have to build yourself. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of creating that community around you. Thank you, Jay. Back to Viren for our second question for a parent. What do you think scares parents, and why do you think so many parents force their expectations onto their kids?
Yeah, a very relevant question. So I will start with this very beautiful line. To know other people, it's intelligence, but to know oneself is wisdom. So if parents starts with knowing who they are, first of all, and they know, look, these are my top two strengths, these are my 2 3 weak points, and whenever they're interacting with kids, they take that into account and then start doing whichever activity they are doing. That makes a huge difference. So expectations, it's a human nature. So parents would have desires which they couldn't do it. So they say, okay, well, we want to live those desires now with our kid. So that's one element where they're being sort of forced to do certain things which the child probably is not liking it or not having fun, or may not be even sort of, doesn't have the capacity to do it. So that's, I think, the biggest thing. So in my case, with the limited experience which I have, I was also a bunch of an anxious parent. So I said, well, I'm anxious because of these reasons. So in the later stage, I sort of work on it. It took 6 to 9 months to just reduce your anxiety by 5%. But that helps a lot with the interaction with the kid. And sometimes parents have to try what the kids want as well. Some certain new skill. For example, I learned cubing because of my son. Yeah. I would have said that, hey, that is completely crap. But it's exactly what the kid would be feeling when parents say, hey, why don't you learn geography and figure out the tectonic movement in whichever grade? Yeah. So those sort of the wiseness which the parents needs to look into, that is, I think, the biggest thing which can really solve this element, that why parents force their kids, or why they have so much of expectations. And I think the second point is more on just the society as it is. Parents will compare. There will be a lot of comparison, and we know that comparison is downhill. But subconsciously or unconsciously, that sort of comparison is always there. Even with the kids, also sometimes those comparisons come in, and when they sort of trigger that discussion, parents become a bit more of comparative in nature, and that also leads to more of these, okay, let's do this, you may go here, let's plan this thing so you may get additional skill. It's more about making your child as like the best product in the whole world, rather than ensuring your child is, he's wiser, he's sort of a self-learner. But it's more about sort of looking at it more objective, that my kid will be like best product in the world, and that's the definition of success which the parents have.
Yeah, I think self-reflection by parents, as you stated, would help a great deal. And then what really grabbed me was taking an interest in the world of your kids, right? Like, I know Roblox, not because I think Roblox is fun, because every one of my young students plays it. YouTubers, I know different YouTubers, not because I watch their channels, but because taking an interest in my students' interests ingratiates them to me, and allows me to utilize those interests to teach them important things. So it's you parents can do that as well as educators. It's, when you step into their world and speak their language, man, do they appreciate it. They feel respected, and they don't often feel that at home or in school. They kind of feel like they're subjects of their parents or of their teachers. They're the pupils as they are, but you can have a much more give and take relationship if you take the approach that you are describing, Viren. So thank you for that. Toral, your second question, which I loved this one. If you had the authority to design your own learning space, what would it be? What does that look like if it was up to you?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question, which really opens up all kind of ideas. It's like, you're opening a magical box and putting all your wishes there. So as a passionate educator, I've got lots to speak here. I would probably, first of all, infrastructure matters a lot, right, about the school. It has a big impact on the educator and the learner. So I would definitely have the school in a village or near a forest, being close to the nature, because that's how we as Homo sapiens have evolved, right? Preferably a residential school where students, along with the teachers, design their own classroom. So that involves more of a team working and bringing in ownership and sense of belonging to where you want to learn. So, talking about a sense of ownership, sense of belonging starts from the scratch. So, if you really want to make the school your house or like your bedroom, then you would definitely want to set up every corner of it. And that's how you get that sense of ownership there. Secondly, it's a place not for a competition where children come in and there's competition and comparison, but it is more of cooperation and collaboration. So, things and activities around where all the children work as teams or in groups towards a certain goal. A place where a teacher is not a teacher at all, but is like, as you said, Mick, she's more of a guide, facilitator, coaching them, mentoring them, building, so to say, the right scaffolds for the child to grow and evolve as a person. So the teacher should be going hand in hand in the journey of learning for the learner. It should be a place which is like a safe environment where every child gets to speak his mind and heart out without being judged. or without any kind of biases or preconceived notions. A place where children are not lectured to, but they are listened to, because that's what children require. At this point of time, we speak so much about social emotional learning, knowing about feelings, how did the day go, the reflections and all of that. So children at this point of time, especially because they are so glued to the screens, and going through major emotional upheavals, we really need to listen to our children. And more because it's to do with children living in the nature, provide as much of practicals as possible before the theory. So doing the reverse, like in any conventional school, first the theory is taught and then we go to the practicals. But here, in fact, children see the practicals, for example, a metamorphosis or growing food, farming, etc., and then building a theory, children building a theory themselves on it. So where they are put on simple projects, and then the teacher assesses the interest level, that this particular child looks like he is interested more in writing part of it, so let's help him grow there. So these are some of the things. And even decision making skills, where children, after the teacher has assessed, students get to choose, get the choice to choose the subjects based on the curiosity that they have and the energy levels that they have in that particular subject. So also, one of the most important things that I believe is that classrooms definitely should not be divided as per as age wise, but should be divided as per the students' competencies and abilities. That's where we will stop labeling children and calling them, as I keep hearing from all the teachers in every school, that this boy is very intelligent, this boy is very dull, things like that. And that's all based on academics. So a school where there is actually where a child is teaching another child. So if I am having a competency in a particular subject, I am getting to teach a class where I think I really love. So that is something where I am showing my passion as well, because I'm passionate about it. I get to speak about it, and the more I speak, the more I teach, the more I learn.
Sounds like a wonderful learning space that I would send my son to. I love that it's nature based, that you're trying to give kids agency, collaboration skills, you know, and you know, as you were saying, like, just I think just all these ideas in general of having it interest based. Almost all of my teaching assistants in my creative tech classes are my former students, right? So once they get to a certain age, they turn around and teach my younger kids things that they can teach much better than I can, even with all my teaching experience, and empowering them to do that. These kids are now, you know, applying for college level art summer projects when they're in 9th and 10th grade, because they've built confidence in themselves and their abilities just by being empowered by someone they trust and respect. So I love everything about what you said, because I've put that into motion and seen the benefits in the confidence that it builds in a young person when they're given agency and mentoring and trust and respect from someone that they look up to. So I'm sending my son to your school when he's older, Toral, for sure. Sandeep, your second around question. What are some key execution steps which you think could be implemented immediately in the public and private education sector?
Yeah, first and foremost, I love that vision of a school that Tural just laid out, and so very much echo that, and how different things would be if we could live into that. I mean, I'll offer three. I think one is, I think we need to basically focus on advocacy. And I think Archana, talked about this a little bit earlier when she said parents care about livelihoods, and that's a natural care to have, right? Like, as a parent, it is natural to be able to say, like, I want my child to succeed. I want my child to have greater opportunity. And because of that, like, I don't want my child to be, subject of an experimentation. But I think what we need to focus on is advocating and getting parents to believe that actually the traditional path and a path of rote and of passivity is actually not, it's not getting us there. And so I think that's one big thing, is how do we change parental beliefs so that we can start to change the conversation from one being that, like, I believe that a different educational system should be possible as a parent, but I also want my child to succeed. And there should be no but. There needs to be an and. I believe that an educational system is possible, and I believe that it needs to happen, and I really want my child to succeed. And so because of that, I believe that my child needs something fundamentally different. I'm going to demand that, because once parents start to demand that, change starts to happen. So that's one, is advocacy. And the second is, I think we need to figure out how to change assessments. And I don't think that assessments are going to be changed with one fell swoop. But I think we need to be able to start to introduce things that, as I said earlier, could start to introduce additional market signals. And out of all of the debate that's out there around what technology and education is doing right now, and I myself am, very mixed with all of that right now, I think one of the positives is that it's actually being able to be a disruptor and say, actually, maybe there's a different way of measuring it that is not this set of high stakes assessments at the end of the day. I think we need more things that are disruptive and saying there are different ways to be able to assess kids, to be able to send market signals to companies, to employers. And so that's one, is we need to figure out how to change assessments. And I think the third is we need to invest in innovations. I actually think we need to invest in innovative schools like the one that Toral just laid out. And I think we need to invest in those schools so that they actually are able to basically be lighthouses, be beacons of possibility that show us that actually there's a different path that's out there. I don't think that we are ready for those beacons to actually be full systems level changes. I think we have to start with experiments, and I think we have to start with examples, and then use those examples to start to change the conversation. I've been fortunate enough to see many of those examples crop up over the past couple of years, and so I think I have hope, but I think we need to figure out how to get more of them.
Yeah, brilliant, Sandeep. Really, convincing parents first is where it's at, because you really encapsulated two big things that traditional education teaches: passivity and rote memorization. And when you carry the world's information in your pocket, what use is memorizing rote information and regurgitating it back on a test? There is zero value to that skill in this society. And I think going to the parents first, and then having something you can offer them or show them those different paths, as you were saying with the kind of school that Tural was describing, those have to go hand in hand. Parents have to be shown a different path, and just because the kids will love it. Anything that has been described, if you give a kid that opportunity versus what they're given now, they'll jump at the chance to go to a school like that versus the one they're in now. So that won't be the difficult part. The difficult part is convincing parents that they should take that chance and put that trust in their kids and in a new way of doing things. So this is why Archana and I love having these panels. Is all of your answers are so intriguing, inspiring, and thought-provoking. We are to our third round of questioning, and back to Jay. Jay, for your third question, as a learner, as a young entrepreneur, what do you need from the other three pillars involved in this conversation to feel more empowered and supported?
I honestly feel that from an education point of view, it's really important that you kind of build a support system around people who want to work on startups. And I'm saying startups because that's the perspective which I'm coming from. But that's true for anyone who's passionate about anything, right? I think someone spoke about learning. I think the parent, I think Viren, spoke about learning cubing for his son, right? That's the same reason my brother's into cubing now. And my dad actually learned cubing, and now he's crazy competitive with cubing. So he's super competitive at cubing. He's super passionate about it. That's startups for me. And my key takeaway from this, and what I kind of want to kind of just put in the forefront and just up on stage, is the fact that anyone who makes it anywhere in life is passionate about something, and they actually get time and they get the resources to pursue it, right? And I know a lot of parents are hesitant by going against the grain, because it's true, right? We as humans and we as society just try to play it as safe as possible. But at the same time, what I think a lot of people who are passionate about want from the other three pillars are essentially a lot of room for experimentation. I found my passion after working for robotics companies. I went and worked for NGOs. I did dozens of different internships to kind of find that one thing which I said, okay, listen, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, right? It doesn't, you can't just snap your fingers and say, listen, I'm passionate about something. It's a slow process. It took me, I think, 2.5 years before I said, okay, this is where I'm seeing myself spending my life. So my takeaway is, and then I think the answer to your question is, number one, a lot of room for experimentation. Um, Number two, I mean, one thing which I would really benefit from is the ability and the time and the infrastructure to actually be able to pursue what you're passionate about. I mean, like, given the amount of time where I have to the amount of time which I have to put into other things which are school related responsibilities, and a lot of these things which I personally may not be deriving a lot of pleasure out of, I would rather get them off the table, right? I would rather not spend that amount of time doing things which I do not derive any happiness from. So I would say a lot more freedom once you found a passion to spend in terms of time, in terms of resources, and in terms of support structure, right? Like, one thing which I feel a lot of parents can do is, I mean, as much as possible, a parent can look into their own network or just kind of help their kid find the support structure to kind of allow their kid to lean back upon. And the reason I say this is because there's a close friend of mine. He's another startup founder. He's, I think, 15 or 16, and he kind of struggled with finding people who were interested in the same thing. Right. He went to a public school in the US, and one thing which he told me was that at school, whenever I spoke about startups, whenever I spoke about, so he's actually raised capital. And whenever he spoke about just kind of working on startups or other startup issues, people would look at him in a weird way, right? That's the expression he used it. And what I kind of told him was the fact that, I mean, if a parent can go out of their way just to help their kid find the small niche of people who love what they're doing, the journey is 100 times less lonely, because startups, and then this is true for anything in life, the only way you are actually making a dent on society in a good way, the only way you're actually disrupting something and you're making society a better place is if you're doing something different, right? No one is able to change anything by not going against the grain. You have to. And when you're going against the grain, it's a lonely journey, right? You just need to make sure you have at least as much of support as possible, as many people to lean back upon on your bad days. And so, yeah, just summarizing, a lot of room for experimentation, allow kids to do internships, to work with people, encourage them to go to talks, go to conferences, network. From an early age, it can never hurt to have contacts. Number two, once a kid has found their passion, give them a lot of room for working on that. Give them that open up their time. Make sure the other commitments which they don't enjoy can possibly get off the table, so that they can spend the bulk of their 24 hours doing stuff which they actually want to be doing, and which they take pleasure in doing. And the third thing is give them and just try and help them build up that network and that community, which kind of supports them along the way. So, yeah.
Great, Jay. We hear this from our self-learners a lot. They want freedom, space, resources, and trust. Trust that as a young person, if you give me those other things, I will find the path most desired for me, and I will get there because I'm passionate. I'm automatically motivated. And if you're just trusting and supporting and giving me the space to be who I am and who I want to become, that's where that will be the end of my, that's the road, that's the finish line I will hit at the end of my journey. Brilliantly stated.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
For our last question for Viren, who is the child that you as a parent want to give to the world, and what role do you think you play in your child's learning journey? More or less, what are your goals for your child, and what role will you play in their learning journey?
So I don't know whether you believe in this short story where I think by the time you are between 5 to 8 years old, your DNA is set. You would be what you are at 5 to 8 at the core.
No.
And no force can change you. So now if your internal DNA has a certain pattern like this, and your external, you're trying to do something different, you will always be fighting with that DNA characteristic which you have built it. So I will just give the world as my son, as he is. But as a parent, my key role would be that by the time he's sort of grown up, whatever grown up definition is, that I need to tell him who he is, because no one was there to tell me who I was or what I was good at. There are certain natural intelligence. If you read all these books by Gardner and many other people, they talk about intelligences. But there are also certain behaviors which comes naturally. There are also certain skills which comes naturally. Um, uh, like for example, some kids are visual spatial learners, and you try to just explain it through audio, it won't serve. So if you just tell the kids that, hey, look, you're good at this, so maybe in the future, if you're running whatever, I mean, companies, startups, jobs, or even doing some other fun activities, maybe you will enjoy better where there is a lot of these spatial and visual things there. So at least you know that you can learn those quickly. So for me, what my role would be to tell my kid who he is based on his DNA, to find what we got to become a bit wiser. What we do is every day we sort of look back at one small thing which we did yesterday, which was sort of stupid, and at least say that we won't do it in future. That's one very small step to becoming wiser. If you do this for 18 years, I think the habits come in, and then you start to seeing, you become self-aware, you become healthy, you are much more on the good things which you want. uh, it also helps in sort of fancy words like delayed gratification, but it comes with the same thing with this knowing yourself who you are. There are kids like Roblox. Yeah, okay, you play 12 hours Roblox, fine. So you give that hedonistic pleasure experiment to the kids for a month and then see what happens. Sometimes they will know, okay, no, that's good enough for me, now I don't want. So to summarize, it's more about that who the child is, uh, will be who he is. But as a role, as a parent, my key role would be to at least fully know, tell him that this is who you are to a certain degree. To put more time and effort into that.
Yeah, I think as you're building their self awareness and self confidence, as you're saying, Viren, some of the things that you see in them, they may not see in themselves yet, and so being able to point out some of those strengths, but also areas of reflection or areas where they could improve, really gives them, the ability to start to self navigate on their own without some guidance from teachers, educators, parents, the people around them. I often say that self-learning doesn't mean that you don't have structure or that you don't have, people around you that support you. It's not an individual journey on your own with no help. We talk about this a lot. You really need those support systems in place as you go along this journey to really get to where you want to be eventually. Thank you for that, Viren. Toral, your third one is similar to our learners, which is, as an educator, what support do you need from the other three pillars in order to do your job at the level that you would want to do it as an educator?
Yeah, I would like to take the employer as the first pillar to start with. So, usually for job interviews and things like that, uh, the first thing that is always asked is a resume and where are your certificates and which Ivy League you're from and things like that. So if you are from an Ivy League, then that's it. You have arrived in life, you've achieved in life, things like that. So it's just a kind of a seal that goes on you along with your name. So if we do away with that and basically just segregate as hard power and soft power. Hard power meaning what are the skills, what are you passionate about, and having a very casual informal interview to know and assess what are his competencies, what are the ways by which we can assess the soft power part of it. What is his attitude towards work? What is his mindset? What about the grit, integrity, courage, faith? All these things, are definitely more crucial and important than all these other tangible aspects of degrees and certificates and all that. So, if employers can again rethink the way of interviewing and getting good candidates into the companies. I think this is something that can be looked into as one of the pillars. The second pillar being the parent. The parent should be okay with not having exams at all, not relying on the results of exams. That how much has my child scored? Has he done the best in his class? What is his rank? And just going by the academics. Many a times, parents don't even look at the non-scholastic subject scores where they are graded and not marked upon. So these are the some things that parents should do away with, and the support from them would be again for them, as Jay was mentioning, listen to the parents, right? I mean, listen to the children, where the child is coming from, what is his passion, where is he that he is lacking. The more of the reflection part, Mick, as you were mentioning, sitting with the child, as Viren was saying, sitting with the child and trying to introspect at the end of the day, what went well for you, why did it go well, and what didn't go well. Let's figure out why it didn't go well. And sometimes just leaving it out with a question. Everything need not be arrived at for a solution. Some things can just be pondered upon and just be left with, and just be slept over with. So these are the some things that parents should unlearn and do away with. And the last pillar being the learner. I don't have much to say here, because it's just the way we mold them, right? So all that the learners should be doing is doing their work honestly, and asking lots of questions. And though it is those kind of questions that they ask that really make the teacher and the parent think how interested he is. What kind of questions is he asking? Are they really the why not kind of questions, the why questions, or are there the how and the what? So getting the child to own their learning is the support that is required from today's students.
Yeah, Toral, I've actually counseled parents a lot, especially when I was a tech teacher. And one of the big things that parents do mistakenly is they drive their kids to be performance-based learners instead of mastery-oriented learners. And what happens when you do that is your child has great anxiety for every test. They feel that every test is the end-all, be-all of their intelligence or lack thereof. They often will take the easy road versus the road with adversity, because they feel that that's what you value is, look, mom, 1 + 1 is 2 and I got an A, versus anything that's more difficult for them, versus the mastery oriented learner, or, where effort is everything. I don't care. Did you try your best? Then it doesn't matter if you got an A, a C, or an F. I'm proud of you for your effort, something you actually control. If you didn't score as well as you want, that just means in that concept, you need to put in more work if it's important to you. And that's such a huge thing parents can do really easily, just with the flip of a switch, and the change in their kids will be phenomenal. Like when you're a mastery oriented learner, you're not fazed by adversity. When you're a performance based learner, you cry in the middle of a test when you already know you're performing poorly. And just that small change from a parenting perspective would have a big effect on their kids, because I see what happens to those kids when they come to school. So I really wholeheartedly agree with that point that you were touching on there. Sandeep, your last question is similar to our other panelists in our third round. As an education leader, what are the things you need from educators, parents, and students to implement some of the changes that we've been talking about, or set in motion some of the changes that we need to see moving forward in the education system?
Yeah, such an important question. I love some of the answers that have come up as well. Such important things to be holding. I think from kids, I think it would be to courageously exercise more voice. Because as you mentioned at the very start of this, like, we need learners to be front and center. And so what would it mean to be able to courageously speak for what a new education could be? I think for parents and for educators, I think it's simple, actually. I think it's simple yet complex. Actually, let me not say it's only simple, but I think it's have the humility to accept that, maybe this should be rethought. Have the humility to accept that age and position are not indicative of power and of full-blown knowledge, right? So have the humility to listen, and to actually say, maybe we would get exponentially further if we could do this in partnership. And I think if we can do that, I think if, as adults, I'm going to simplify our educators and parents to be as adults. I think if as adults, we can actually have the humility to say, maybe we need to rethink this and maybe we need to do it in partnership. And as kids and learners to be able to say, actually, I also want to operate with humility, but I want to, in that humility, be willing to say what I think should be that new path. I think we could forge something special.
Love that, Sandeep. I have to tell you, as an educator, my goal is always to ask more questions than I answer. And whenever possible, give my students a chance to teach me something. Even if it's something I kind of know already, just how did you do that? And what made you make those choices? Because you see them light up when they're given that opportunity to teach something to someone that they look up to, so that it's not such a one-way transactional thing between educators or parents and kids, so that there's more give and take. We can teach them a lot about, let's say, interpersonal communication skills. They can teach us a ton about technology, their natural ability for that. And how empowering is it to them when we say, look, I'm really great at this, but you're really great at this. So I want to teach you this. And I want you to teach me about, where your natural tech skills. And there's such an opportunity there if we'll just have the humility to take it, as you brilliantly explained it, Sandeep. Excellent work from our panel, as always. It just never ceases to amaze me, the incredible feedback and thoughts and ideas that we get from our panel each week, and the great people that Archana brings to this podcast. Now it is time for your final exam, so to speak. Archana is a tough test giver, but she's going to hit you with some rapid fire questions, which should be, she'll say one word. I would say one sentence at the most. I got grilled on this several times during my time as a panelist. So thank you for your wonderful and thoughtful answers. And I'm going to turn it back over to Archana now.
Thanks. It was brilliant conversation, very crisp and very clear and to the point. I really appreciate Sandeep's and Toral and Jay and Viren, the kind of energy we are all bringing to these discussions. I'm very hopeful that we are going to, be on that path to recreate the education system, very soon. So thanks everyone again. And Mick makes me villain every time, he takes the good part of it and then he leaves the exam. And I think we are talking about no assessment, no grading. So why I'm here to have this rapid fire round. But yeah, so the first question I would just, surprise everyone with the question I generally just, come with on the fly, is that we are trying to transition from certain things or certain beliefs to the certain going towards direction, and it's written on the poster of voiced. So we want to shift our mindset from growth to what? This is the first question. Anyone can answer this. No cheating looking at the poster. I just wanted to check how observant we are.
It's in our dashboard, right? You can see this. It's right at the bottom. It's the background. So all of us are going to play innocent, but yeah, it's pretty open.
So growth to what?
Prosperity.
Yes. And then we also want to move from word to what? Because it's not seen.
Okay, no, I can't see that much.
That's why world, yeah. Because I just this poster has been created with a lot of thought, where we are trying to convey all the things what we are trying to bring through this podcast on this poster. So I would love everyone to go and read that in your leisure once we are done. But okay, so our first question and a couple of questions which are common for all the panelists, and we can go in any order we want. Um, so, in one sentence or one word, probably, what is one thing you like? You all want to start, stop, and continue in the current education system.
I think one thing which I would start. Oh, one word, right? Um, can I just push three words together? More room for experimentation. I think that's one thing which I would love to start. So probably more internships, more work opportunities, more chance to network. That's I think something which will really benefit people.
Okay. Yeah. Next.
Yeah,
Sandeep.
I think what I would like to start is having freedom to the kids or the child in whether they're going to conventional school or unlearning or whichever journey, but having certain time which is like complete freedom.
Okay. Tural and Sandeep.
Yeah, I would like to start yoga and meditative exercises for both teachers and learners to build an emotionally and mentally healthy community for learning.
Great. Sandeep.
I'd like to start active listening and active participation from a multitude of stakeholders in the learning process.
And stop and continue.
Yeah. I would love to stop, focus on root. I would love to stop, focus on learning that feels anachronistic. Yeah.
Great. And anything for continuing, like you just want to keep it as it is in the current system? Or we can.
I think I see across the world, I think teachers that are committed and focused on relationships with kids. And I do think that while that is imperfect and that is tough, like I do think I see across classrooms that I visit teachers that really care for kids and that really want like relationships to be at the heart of that. I want to continue and grow that.
Great, great. Okay, the second question is one thing you unlearned or want to unlearn in your life.
Oh, I think it's kind of like this fear of going against the grain. Like one thing which maybe it's just me, maybe it's everyone, but when you're growing up in such in an education system like this, you get so used to thinking of things in a very fixed way that every time you want to do something different, which is something which you kind of you feel like doing, all of a sudden there's this nagging suspicion in your head that what if this decision gets me like I get caught up in this decision and it's my downfall sort of thing. So I think you just have to. I mean, like my takeaway from this is just be more bold, right?
Okay.
I think one thing which I will sort of unlearn is external validation. Every time you do things, you are looking externally to get some, yeah, this is great or this is good, rather than so external validation is the one thing which I would like to unlearn.
Great. Sandeep and Toral.
Yeah, as an educator, something that the teacher is always ready to give the answer immediately, whether it's a factual question or an open-ended question. The teacher wants to answer first. Yeah, because she knows the answer. When she doesn't get answers from students, she wants to give the answer. So that is something that has to be unlearned. And I am, as a teacher also, unlearning that and getting teachers to take the back seat and children being in the driver's seat.
Sure. Great. Sandeep.
So many things, but I think the biggest one is that learning in 12 years of education needs to be like cough syrup. Like if I use the cough syrup analogy, it's that drink a lot of it and that eventually basically you'll get better and the cough will go away, even if it doesn't taste good. And I think that like we tend to hold the same belief about education, right? Like keep drinking the cough syrup, eventually it's going to pay off. Like it doesn't have to taste bad. It can actually be a very pleasant experience in the process.
That's really wonderful. Yep. The third question, if you were to write a book, it's autobiography, fiction, or anything, what the title would be?
I'm actually writing one. I'm thinking about writing one. I'm calling it the Handbook for Teenage Entrepreneurship. So the name is still in debate. My parents aren't on the same page about the name. So any suggestions?
We will come back to you on that. Yeah. Viren, Toral, Sandeep, anyone wants to go?
I think I don't know the exact title, but something on wisdom, knowing yourself.
Okay. Toral?
Yeah, the title of the book would be Every Student as a Leader of His School.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And Sandeep.
Yeah. I think it would be starting over.
Okay. Great. So the next question is top 3 skills, and maybe we can just have like one word for each skill, like 3 words for like the must-have life skills in your opinion.
So something on self-learning, self-learner, uh, becoming wiser, and becoming happier.
Okay.
Not a skill, but being unique, being unique, being thoughtful, and being the Hindi word jugadu, right? Being enterprising.
Yeah. Great.
First is listening. We always talk about public speaking, communication, decision making, things like that. But listening first to yourself and then to others. So listening definitely is a life skill to be had. The ability to express in any form is the second one, and the third is collaboration.
Great. Sandeep's turn.
Critical thinking, courage, and compassion. Those would be the
Yes.
3.
Wow. Great. Again, like, we have been listening about all this a lot. I think it's like the common points, which are, we have been recording everyone's top 3, and it's mostly, I think, the same things coming up again and again. So meaning of success and happiness in one word for you.
Finding and being empowered. Sorry, purpose. You said one word. Purpose. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Great.
I think to me, happiness is more of freedom, and success is more of I think it's social impact.
Okay.
I think
Um,
happiness is. Oh, sorry, I cut someone off.
no,
Go
Jay,
ahead.
you can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think happiness is kind of just about being motivated, finding a passion, and what was the second one? You said happiness and
Success.
okay, success. Success, I think, is just about being able to get to kind of keep on growing, keep on hitting your milestones, and just being able to do what you love without any other burdens.
Toral?
Yeah, success is sense of fulfillment in the work that you've just done, and happiness comes from love, finding the meaning of your life.
Okay. Yeah, so Mick actually brilliantly just combines the question. So he says, for me, success is happiness, So
That was my first week's answer. Well, because I have a 2.5-month-old son, and I remember my students asking me right away, like, Mr. D, what do you want your son to be when he grows up? I said, happy. I'll be a successful parent if my son grows up and he's happy. He knows who he
Being
is, but really just comes down to that inner feeling of happiness. So I cheated a little bit on my final exam. For me, success is
Yep. Okay. So, what is one common practice or belief as a collective community we need to unlearn?
I think it's about putting everyone into that one cookie cutter. Because the more you put everyone into that cookie cutter format, right, the more robots you're gonna have in the universe, and that's not honestly what people need. We need less of automation, more of people doing what they love and people being amazing at what they love, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Who is
I think
going next?
a fear of failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it's just that what we need to unlearn is, as I mentioned earlier as well, that your child doing well in the exam in your academics is not the parameter by which you say that, oh, my child has really done well, he's a topper, he's a ranker. But there is so much more to that, right? Empathy, compassion, kindness, integrity, faith, courage. So it's all of this that has to be measured, and that comes in, which is always neglected.
Yeah. Sandeep.
I think that education is best when it is delivering knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah. Great. So now I have individual questions for each one of you. So as a learner, the first question for Jay, and first and last question basically, what is your favorite time pass?
I think I think I've come to the point where I found something which I love doing so much that I will get lost in it. That's I think what is my time pass. So whenever I have even a moment to spare, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna find some of the other startup stuff to work on. So I know it sounds really cliche. I get asked this question a lot, but what I love doing with my whole heart is startups. So I find myself doing that a lot more than I would like to admit to doing. But I think when you find a passion, that's your time pass, your downtime becomes your passion, and your passion
Mhm.
becomes your downtime. So
Yeah. Yeah.
hope that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. For a parent, one habit your son hate most about you. One character.
Uh, Accepting frequent changes. So if we decide to do something, and after 10 minutes he says, "Well, I don't want to do it," that's where I say, "Hey, we just decided, so let's do it."
pushing temporarily for like what you started to finish it off, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
uh, as an educator, the question for Toral is one thing you absolutely hate but still you do as a on a daily basis as an educator today.
Exams, conducting standardized exams, absolutely hate it.
Yeah. For Sandeep, I think that like, there are so many questions to be asked to Sandeep, but as a like education leader, you have been working a lot. What is one absolutely must-have skill which you look into your team when you are hiring or when you are building team? What is that one absolutely must-have which you cannot compromise on? You know, uh, in your team. So.
The ability and the excitement to solve complex problems.
Uh-huh. Okay, great. So I think again, I think we went over limit our like 20 minutes over our 1 hour session. It always happens, but today's was the longest session, I think, right, Mick? We have
yeah.
touched 1 hour,
I
10
never look.
minutes.
I don't look at the time. I rarely look at the time when the conversation's engaging. So I'll look up and I'm like, oh, we went over, but it doesn't feel like an hour and 20 minutes. It feels like it goes by very quickly. And, I still want to hear more from everyone, even though we've spent an hour and 20 minutes together already.
Yeah. And generally we don't have many live audience because it's Sunday evening time, but that's what suited for everyone, like when we initially gathered the information from everyone. But there are multiple views on the LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube as well. But thanks everyone for your time, and it was really and like interviewing and deep conversations we have on each episode of Voice. And we are blessed to have panelists join from different countries. Right now, I think we have more than 9 to 10 countries which we have hosted the panelists from in different roles. And we want to keep doing this. We don't want to stop, and we just want to listen everyone's voice, and how do we all co-create a system which is learner-centric system, which is supported by all the 3 pillars in the society, and how do we go ahead and start implementing that around the world. So thanks everyone again. Thanks a lot, Mick, for being an amazing co-host with me. And yeah, good night.
Yeah, my
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Excellent conversation as always. You guys give me a lot of food for thought. So thank you for sharing all of your insights and thoughts and ideas with us. And please share the episode so that everyone in your network can see how brilliant you are as a panelist. And that's to each of you individually. Thank you, Archana, as well, for always having me as your co-host. Much appreciated. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.